If you'd like to be able to listen to the show without ads and have full access to bonus content, that's an option. To find out how, please go to dogmanencounters.com/podcast. Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate you being here. As I'm sure almost all of you noticed, I didn't have a show last Friday night. Full disclosure, I missed you guys. I really did. I love doing this. I really do enjoy it. But I've got to tell you, it sure was nice having last Friday off. It made for a great weekend, but still at the same time kind of itching to get back into the swing of things. Well, I'm not going to beat around the bush anymore. Let's get right down to it. Let's get our guest in here. Tonight's guest is Justin. Justin, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Vic. Thank you for having me on the show tonight.
Oh, you're welcome. Justin, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
I'm a 29-year-old and I live in West Tennessee, rural West Tennessee. And I've kind of lived here all my life. And I'm an avid outdoorsman. I have been since I've been a little kid. So I've spent, pretty much all of my life out in the woods and everything like that. But, just a simple, level-headed, country boy from Tennessee. So
nothing wrong with that at all. You live in West Tennessee. Your encounter happened in West Tennessee, actually close to the land between the lakes. Did you hear about any rumblings regarding dogmen being in or around the LBL when you were growing up?
Oh, 100%. We were grown up by my great grandmother and my grandfather, and everybody always telling us, that there's always been rumors about land between the lakes and up near Kentucky Lake and everything, about creatures out in the woods that, they couldn't quite explain or understand. So, so we've always kind of had the rumors going around of, dog-like beings and or maybe Sasquatch, up near around there, but mainly dogmen. And as a kid, I never really fully understood what they were talking about until I had my encounter.
Yeah, then it became crystal clear. How close are you to the LBL?
Well, I'll go ahead and say I live in Jackson, so I would say it around 2 hours, away. So not too far away, maybe about an hour and a half away from Kentucky Lake. So
Yeah, that's pretty close right there. And when we spoke for the first time, did I hear you correctly? Did you say that you still live in the same house you were living in when you had your encounter?
correct.
Wow. Have there been any long-lasting after effects living in the house where you were when you had that encounter? Or is it almost water off of a duck's back, no trouble?
Well, I could kind of take it with, both strides there in a way, because for quite a while, I know the experience happened quite a while ago, but it's always stuck with me in the back of my head because like I said, I'm an avid, hunter. I'm an avid fisherman, and, I'm used to walking to a deer stand in the pitch black dark. And, you wonder when you hear that twig break or, and you can't see anything around you, but you're in the middle of the woods, and that memory always kind of comes back, and, the hair on the back of your neck stands up in a way. And, but in another stride, a lot of people didn't believe me. So I just kind of had to keep it, just kind of to myself and go about my, day-to-day life. So, in a way it's always been with me, but in another way, I've kind of rolled with the punches.
Well, that's great. You've been able to do that. As long as you can do that and go on and live your life the way it should be lived, then yeah, that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. And talking about hearing the twig snap and everything, I was walking in the woods this morning and I heard my fair share of those twigs snapping. Now, that's not to say that it was a Sasquatch or a dog man. Most assuredly wasn't. But when you hear those twigs snapping like that and you can't see what's doing it, it does make you wonder sometimes. So I do get it. I really do. Now, the Dogman encounter you had, Justin, it was in the subdivision where you lived and where you live right now. Back then, I know it was a small subdivision, but has it grown much since then, about 15 years ago? And also, back then, you had a lot of woods around that subdivision, a lot of fields. Is that the same way?
Oh yeah, normally we've maybe only have had maybe two or three more houses put up, but other than that, it's still just the same, small rural subdivision with, the same exact fields around it and everything else. So, it's pretty much exactly the same as it was about 15 years ago.
I wondered about that. Yeah, all across the country, housing's really in a shortage right now. So because of that, so many subdivisions are just growing like crazy, but there are places where there's not all that much growth. So that's why I didn't take it as a given that that subdivision that you live in has grown. So that's why I asked that question. Now, you were 14 to 15 years old when that encounter happened. Do you think your encounter caused any long-lasting effects that you're suffering from to this day? It doesn't sound like you are, but just to be thorough, I wanted to ask.
No, no long-term effects whatsoever. Like I said, I'm not afraid to go out in the woods, or I'm not afraid to go deer hunting or anything like that. So, it's just something that always kind of sticks in the back of my mind. But I have heard some stories where, dogmen have been aggressive towards people, but unfortunately, or fortunately, that wasn't my encounter. To have an aggressive dog man, but it was, up close and personal. So,
Yeah, thank goodness it wasn't aggressive. That definitely it complicates things when that happens. It really does. One of the things you noticed about the dogman you saw, Justin, was the fact that, as you put it, it seemed to be intelligent. Now, did that intelligence that it had, did that heighten the fear you felt or lessen it?
oh, most definitely, because it was, like we talked about when we first talked, it was me and three other people that were all actually standing, side by side, walking together. And when it ran out of the woods and it stopped in the middle of the road,
I'll tell you what, let me
and,
stop you right there. I don't want you to reveal the details of that encounter yet.
oh,
We're going to
okay.
get to that in just a second. But just to touch on that question, in some ways, when you see a dog man or anything like that, if it's intelligent, that can be a good thing because if it's intelligent, then that's going to increase the odds of you being able to reason with it. But in other ways, if it's deviant, that just makes it that much more dangerous. So I wasn't really sure how you felt on that. If your fear was heightened or lessened by that fact.
I would say more so heightened in a way because we didn't know what we were looking at, but in a way, it was looking at us with a sort of look that a normal animal does not look at you with, but yet it had the animalistic side to it. And I believe that's what heightened the fear.
Yeah, I can understand why. I really can. All right, Justin, now please tell us all about your encounter. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
Okay, yeah. Well, it was just a normal, day around in September into August, and it was, going towards dusk. And, so the sun was, still up a bit and everything like that. And me and three other of my buddies, we all just decided to walk around our neighborhood and, till it got dark and we were all hanging out, and we were around 15, 16 years old. And, we were walking around smoking cigarettes in the neighborhood and, just being teenagers, of course. And we come to half of the neighborhood is actually county and half of the neighborhood is city, and we were actually walking on the county side where there are no street lights. So once it gets kind of dusky, it's It's a lot darker on the county side, but yet it was still light enough to where you could clearly see if something came out or anything. And we were walking, down the street. And next thing we were all standing all four in a row, just chit chatting. And, we noticed a car that was coming down the street kind of in front of us, coming into the cove, and its headlights. I guess the person had already turned his lights on, because it was getting kind of dusky. And, next thing you know, out of the wood line, kind of behind the houses in the cove, um, comes sprinting this. I mean, it had to have been at least 6.5 to, I would say, 7 feet tall. It was the first thing that I believe I noticed was the erect ears on it and the snout and the fur that it had on its head. And one of my first thoughts were, is this a person, wearing a Halloween mask or something? But once it actually ran out and got into the street, and you could see the muscle details in its thighs. I mean, you could see almost its biceps, in a way. But the most vivid part that stood out to me were the pointed erect ears with the pronounced snout on it and the forked dog legs, and having what seemed to be the torso of a man and sort of the arms of a man, but the arms were very long, and what seemed to be hands, not paws, but hands on its upper body. But on its lower body, it literally had forked legs and the feet of a dog. And once the car was coming and it slammed on its brakes because it saw it, we all stopped and froze, and we were probably 20 yards away from it. The car was probably roughly around the same distance from it. And the car beeped its horn really quick, I guess, to try to get it to move. And it looked at the car, and then it turned and looked up the hill at us. And I think that's when that sort of primordial fear kicked in, of where that's where I saw the intelligence. I saw it was trying to make a decision of what I need to do next. That's what I perceived from it. And it let out this howl slash guttural growl type, just something I have never in my life ever heard come from the woods or any form of animal, dog, or anything. It was just something I've never heard before. But, you know, after the car started driving again, I guess that's what kind of spooked it. And it ran into the thin strip of woods that we were just walking past down the hill. And we thought we would see it pop out the other side and keep on running through the neighborhood. But no, it did not. And we believe it stopped there in the thin strip of woods between the two roads. And we went ahead, walked down the hill and around the cove where it had just run out from. And we believe the whole time, it was watching us walk by. But the whole time, once we kind of got, about 50 yards away, we started kind of jogging and, sprinting kind of away just to get away from the area. But in general, we all four got back to my house and all just kind of sat down in disbelief. And we were all just sort of asking if we all saw the same thing. And we all did. And we all just started talking about what was it? What could it be? But we were all blown away. We were all very blown away by it.
Oh, I'm sure you were. I don't doubt that at all. Did it have much of a hump to its back?
Honestly, I would say this was standing almost erect, especially when it stopped and it just stood in the middle of the road. It almost straightened up, like it stood all the way up on its hind legs to almost make itself look bigger in a way, like it stood just all the way up. And, I think that it was me, my friend Philip, Brock, and a girl named Shelby. And when it stood up even higher, like the girl that was with us, she almost froze in place. We almost couldn't get her to even start walking again after it had run off. But, it was pretty terrifying, I would admit.
Oh, I'm sure it was. I don't doubt that at all. Holy cow. Now, it's obvious you handled it really well. You handled it like a champ, in my opinion. But I mean, right away, it affected one or two of the friends you were with. But down the road, as time passed, do you know if everyone got over that experience pretty easily, or do you think there were some long-lasting effects for some of those friends?
You, I'm not exactly sure where Shelby stood on it because I didn't speak to her, for a while after that. But I know for the longest, me and my friend Brock went to the same high school and everything for the next 3 more years and everything. And me and him would always bring it up and talk about it. And my friend Philip, who actually his uh, parents still live in this neighborhood, um, he never wanted to talk about it. He said that he didn't like the idea of knowing that something like that was in the woods, and he said that he just did not want to talk about it. So, but I think it affected him, kind of negatively. He just never wanted to talk about it ever.
Well, that's how some people try to deal with an experience like that. But you know, it is, you can't hide anything from yourself. So by trying to put it out of your mind like that, maybe to a certain degree for a while, it might help, it might be beneficial, but in the long run, it's like trying to hide your car keys from yourself. You just can't do it. It doesn't work. So I wish people wouldn't even try to do that. Now, you said the car honked at it. How close was the car to it though when it honked?
I would say the car was around about the same distance, probably that about we were, maybe around 20 yards from it, 20, 25 yards, very close to it, because it pretty much had to slam on its brakes in a way, because the dogman, or creature, whatever you want to call it, it just stopped in the middle of the cove. It basically, I don't know if it saw us first and was stopping, or if it saw the car first and was stopping, but I do know that it looked directly up at us, and then it looked at the car back at us, and then took off in the woods. And I have never seen something run that fast onto, like, I would almost want to say that it looked like it could have got down on all fours and taken off, honestly, if it wanted to.
Oh, I'm sure it could have. Don't doubt that at all. Before we move on, if you've had a dogman encounter that you need help coming to terms with, or if you want to be a guest on the show, please go to dogmanencounters.com, submit a report. If you do that, then I'll contact you to schedule a phone consultation and we'll take it from there. How well did the car's headlights light it up? If it was about 20 yards from it, that's pretty close.
Oh, that car's headlight, like I said, it was still a little dusky out. So the sun was still out, but it was kind of behind the trees in a way, if you can kind of picture that sort of light outside, plus the car headlights. I mean, it lit the whole thing up well, where we could see it had less hair around its torso, and you could sort of see the darker skin to the animal, but around the head, neck, and legs, I would say it was pretty much pure fur. And I could not recall or not if I saw a tail or not. I still to this day cannot recall if I saw a tail. It doesn't hit me. I can't remember.
Well, I mean, most people in an experience like that, they're so gobsmacked that they're doing good to notice any details. But I think you did a really good job. You should be commended because, yeah, you noticed a lot of good details about this thing. Now, if the headlights were lighting it up that well, you could see it pretty clearly then. And I'm wondering when it honked its horn, when the car honked its horn at it at that close range, did it jump scare or did it not seem to be that phased by it?
I would honestly say it really did not seem that phased by it. And that's whenever it sort of let out that sort of low guttural howl, maybe almost kind of like a bark in a sense, in a way. That's how I would almost explain it. Almost like, hey, you can wait, like, that's almost how I kind of, think about it now.
Yeah, well, these things, they go where they want to go. They do what they want to do. That doesn't surprise me. It didn't jump when the car's horn honked. That
Right.
definitely fits the bill for what I'd expect from a dog man. Now, did you and your friends spend much time in the woods around that subdivision before you saw that dog man?
Oh, most definitely. Actually, where it had run out from, we had actually put a bunch of old 50-gallon drums and old couches and things back there, and we made it like kind of like a paintball course through the woods back there. But on the other side of the field is an old, I guess, settlement from the middle to late 1700s. And there's, a lot of, if anyone wants to look it up, it's Cooper, and it's right off Cooper Anderson Road here in West Tennessee. And I believe it was the Anderson family, um, and they had a lot of young kids die and everything like that. And there's, cemeteries back there, old cemeteries from the 1700s and everything back there. And we got to asking some local historians about the settlement and everything. And supposedly, there was talk and report of witchcraft that had happened a long time ago back there. So, it that could all be folklore, but, but it is pretty interesting to, that, we actually have seen the old cemeteries and the old, houses and barns that have fallen down and everything. So it's pretty neat, pretty neat. So it's an old settlement back there from where it ran from. So I don't know if that could have anything to do, with seeing it where it came from. I'm not sure.
Well, it just might. I don't want to assume things, but I get the impression you shared that with us because you already know that when you have a situation like that, where the land's got history like that land does, that does seem to really increase the odds of seeing a dog man. Is that the case?
I believe so. I believe so.
Yeah, I thought you knew about that, and that's why you said that. Yeah, for some reason, that does seem to be the case. Now, after you saw the dog man, you said you guys used to spend time in the woods before, and I figured you did. But after having that encounter, did you guys swear off going into the woods for a long time, or was it business as usual?
For about 5 years, we did not go back into the trails. For about 5 to 6 years, I don't believe anybody went back riding bikes back there. No more paintball, because seeing that face to face, you're almost awestruck in a way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's going to leave anyone awestruck. And one of the reasons why it's going to leave you even more awestruck is how good of a look you got at this thing because of the headlights and everything. And speaking of those headlights lighting it up again, did you notice any expression on the dog man's face?
Honestly, I really couldn't see any expression. All I know is I know it had two eyes, snout, two ears, and, you know, it looked like human hands for hands, but when the headlights hit it, you could see the outline of its thigh muscles, and you could see the line through its bicep muscle. So, I mean, you could tell this thing was muscular, very muscular.
Oh, I'm sure it was. I don't doubt that at all. And while you were talking, I noticed a funny comment in the live chat. There it is from Gunner. Gunner said, "No dogmen here in Los Angeles." Well, what would you say, Gunner, if I told you I've spoken with two separate eyewitnesses who had their encounters inside the city limits of LA? How about that? Yeah, I know it's hard to wrap your mind around. Now, these guys they are seen in places where you just wouldn't believe it. It's just so hard to wrap your mind around. Like I said, they go where they want to go and they definitely do what they want to do. Well, as fate would have it, Justin has to cut out of here early. He's got to go pick up his girlfriend. But yeah, having said that, before we do let him get out of here, do you have any closing comments you want to put out there for us?
All I want to say is to any doubters out there who, may think this is not real or they don't exist, please take me at my word that I have seen a flesh and blood, whether it's flesh and blood, whether it's supernatural, whether it's whatever. I saw a dog man and I know they're out there. And I would leave it at that.
Yes, you did. And yes, you do. So that's a good way to put a button on it. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing the details of that experience there with us, Justin. I really appreciate it. And please keep in mind, if I can ever help you out in the future, all you have to do is let me know and I'll be there for you.
Hey, Vic, thank you so much again for having me on the show tonight.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to do it. Well, thanks again so much, everyone, for listening. I really appreciate you doing that. And of course, hope you have a great night.
Thank you. Thank you.